Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. I'm Joel Miller. I'm the interim minister here at the Morristown Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. So glad to welcome you here this morning. I love the buzz of conversation in the morning. All right, little pun this morning, given that I'm talking about bees today. And you can see I'm wearing a stole, and it has bees on it. And if I really want to get loud about it, I can really put on the black and the white. So I think bees are amazing. And, stoles are, you ministers like stoles. And almost all the stoles I have were given to me by a congregation somewhere. I have the congregation that was given to me by the First Unitarian Universalist Church in Columbus, Ohio, where I grew up when they ordained me. And this stole was made for me and given to me by the First Unitarian Church in Rochester, New York. They'd really been struggling. They had become a congregation of almost at one point they were a congregation of over 1,000 members. And they had a little bit of an upheaval right before I came to be their interim minister. And they were trying to figure some things out. And they were trying to figure out what they wanted to do next as a congregation. Now they had this lovely mission statement. You have, in a sense, two mission statements. You have a mission statement that you adopted in 1993, and it's a lovely, beautifully written mission statement. And then there's an interim mission statement that the board adopted and wrote directly out of the strategic plan that you created as a congregation about 3 years ago. And a very extensive plan with a lot of sense about the direction that you want to go as a congregation. A lot of great work in that plan. Thing about mission statements is that for a community, they really help a congregation understand where is it we're going to go together and how do we want to get there. It's really important for staff because if I'm making decisions on your behalf, because I don't make my decisions because I like it or I don't like it. Ministers don't get to do that. The job of a minister is to serve the people of the congregation and their vision, their mission, your mission. That's my job, is to help you with your mission. And the one from 1993 is beautiful, but it was not very clear what I should or shouldn't be doing. And I really like to know that because sometimes when I make a decision on behalf of the congregation, I want to be sure I'm doing what the congregation wants because there's always somebody who says, I don't like it that you made that decision. I really don't like that, Reverend Joel. And if the mission statement's not very clear, I don't have much to fall back on, but if the mission statement says this is where we're going as a people together, well, it's a little easier to say, well, I'm just doing my best to follow the mission statement. And that's really helpful because, in congregational life, I figure if I've got some people angry with me for doing something, and I've got another group of people angry at me because I didn't do something else, another group of people angry at me for not doing another thing, I figure if I'm in the middle of all that, I'm just about right. Because there's always somebody who's not going to be happy with what I'm doing. It's just life in ministry. So, in First Unitarian in Rochester, which is why I'm especially wearing this today, I did a sermon about bees, which they found very helpful. And it was not very long after that they took a look at the mission statement they had adopted about 12 years before. And they said, is this still true for us? And they changed about 5 words. And then they said it is. Now, this mission statement they had was very brief, 3 lines. Listen to what's going on in the world around you, and then open to transformation and wonder. And then serve our needs together and the needs of the world around us. And each of those sentences begins with listen and open and serve. This begins with a verb. And this is the thing about, the thing that was so important about sharing that with you, and that I always think about when I wear this stole and I do a service on bees. There are members of that church who have those 3 verbs tattooed on their arms, like a dozen people in that congregation. Listen, open, and serve. That's how much that mission statement means to them. My hope is that sometime in about 1.5 years, maybe 2 years, with your next minister, you'll work on a mission statement together, one that is so meaningful to you together that, well, if you don't tattoo it on your arm, maybe you'll tattoo it on your heart. Welcome this morning. I'm glad to be here with you, celebrating life and all we can do as a congregation.
Good morning, and I also welcome you. New friends and old, welcome to our shared journey of the Spirit. We're grateful you are with us this morning. I'm Kathy Cacavalli, this morning's worship associate, and I'm so pleased to share this morning's service with you. We're a spiritual community that appreciates the importance of the democratic process in our congregations and in the world. We look for ways to empower each other in the personal decisions of our lives, supporting each other through birth, childhood, youth, adulthood, and our time as elders. Being in community is how we learn the power in the democratic process. We model it for our children, encourage it in our youth, practice it as adults, and learn from our elders how important it is to depend on each other as we grow and change. And we practice patience as we learn. We know that the cooing babies here, and sometimes even wailing babies, not today, okay, will someday be the leaders in our democracies. And we cherish our elders who have built and nurtured this spiritual home for us and are patient with them in their transitions too. In this time of worship, as we all are always learning to listen, we understand if you have a need to leave for a conversation with a child or with an elder. If children, youth, and their families have questions about our religious education programming, Nick Walwork is our Director of Religious Education. Our new season of religious education programming has begun, and Nick is pleased to talk with you and answer questions about it. If you want to know more about our choir, you can talk to our music director, Michael Rosen. Our AV technical director in the back is Alex West, and our congregational administrator, Katie Ulick, is here most weekdays and is happy to get your emails. And Reverend Joel is our interim minister. We have many announcements in the order of services online and on paper, and I have just one more late announcement to include. On February 15th, Thursday evening, we will be introducing a new women's spirituality group here at MUF. All are welcome to join as we explore women's spirituality through ritual, sharing, and discussion. More information about this will be in the weekly email blasts. And finally, the Endowment Committee will be in the Great Hall today to answer questions on the grant proposal process and to distribute the proposal forms. And now, if you would join with me in reading our chalice lighting reading as Reverend Joel lights the chalice. Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Please stand if you'd like.
In this time for all ages, I invite children, youth, adults, anyone who's young at heart, come on up and help me with the time for all ages this morning. Oh, I'm glad to see you guys. Thanks for coming up. Hello. Hi. So I'm talking about bees today. Do you know much about bees? Have you ever seen a beehive? No? We have a member of our congregation who's been keeping bees for, I think, over 20 years. Don Lynch. Where are you, Don? There he is, right there. He was telling me this morning about how in March he's going to do a Sunday school session on keeping bees. So you'll be able to talk with Don about, you'll be able to ask him questions like, have you ever gotten stung? Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. Have any of you been stung by a bee before? Yeah? Did it hurt? I remember, it's been a long time since I got stung by a bee, but Don told me one of the most interesting things today, that when a person keeps bees, they get to know the hive really well, and the hive gets to know the beekeeper really well. And that if a beekeeper dies, other beekeepers will go and tell the hive what happened. Isn't that an interesting thing to do? Bees are probably a lot smarter than we know. Something that I've learned from bees is how important it is that we help and care for one another. When I was your age, my family used to have a thing called family reunions. Do you ever get together with all of your cousins and your aunts and uncles and your second cousins? Somebody does way over here. When I was a kid, I had so many cousins. And were like second cousins, third cousins, fourth cousins. They were all kinds of cousins. Some of them you could have called kissing cousins, I think. And I remember once my grandpa and some of the other older folks at the family reunion were talking. Now, these were folks who they were born before there were cars or radios. That's how old they were. And I remember them they were talking about a cousin who'd done really, really well, but he was kind of mean about it. And they didn't like that. They were shaking their heads like, yeah, it's important to be a good person. I asked my grandpa after that. I was surprised because, well, isn't it important to be successful? And my grandpa said, oh, yeah, I want you to do well. I want you to figure out what you want to do for your work life. Maybe you'll go to college. Maybe you'll develop a working skill. Have an honest job. But the most important thing, Joel, he said, is to be a good person. That really stuck with me for a long time. So when Don was talking to me today about keeping bees, I was thinking, what does it mean to be a good person with the bees? We're going to think a little about that here this morning. Be a good person with bees, even if they sting you sometimes. I'm glad you're here. I'm going to invite you to go back and sit with your families. I'd like to invite Candace and Brooke Donaldson to come up at this time. They're going to share in our milestones, passages, and gratitudes. This ritual is a part of what draws community together. It's important that we share at many different levels of life. We share in the experiences of reason. We share in the experiences of what does it mean to be a good person. We share in the experience of making decisions as community. I'm going to invite you guys to come on up now and
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brooke Donaldson. Our healing thoughts and prayers to the many folks at MUF who have COVID, flu, and all of the other crud going around. I know I've been sick twice already this month. You might still hear it. The Caring Committee would like to notify everyone that George Hayes fell last night. And I think it says brakes apparently. I'm not sure. No brakes apparently, but resting at home. MUF member had progressive dinner last night, and we had lots of fun. So we're thinking about George as he recovers. On behalf of Janine and Drew, Janine Torsiello and Drew Hayes both have COVID. They are resting at home. Cards would be appreciated. And the address is 195 North Beverwick Road, Apartment 16, Lake Hiawatha, New Jersey, 07034. And if you want to see that later at the end, you can come up and take a picture of this, take it home. On behalf of Jason Salisbury, thank you for the donation of magic show tickets by MPAC to the service auction. My daughter Charlotte and I had a great time. That's great to hear. Glad you all got to experience that. And a gratitude for the Pastoral Care Associates for showing all of the compassion and caring they do for our fellowship, especially at a time when so many members are ill. Our last milestone and gratitude comes from myself and my wife Candace.
Sometimes when you're part of a community, such as MUF, you support others without even knowing it, with just your presence and your kind words.
And Candace and I have been a benefactor of that support over the last 5 years as we have been on a little bit of a tough journey, but today we wanted to share our latest milestone with you.
Brooke and I are pregnant.
I see Nick's smile in the back. He's like, great, another kid for the RE program. And so you might be wondering at this point, which of us is pregnant? And we would like to tell you that after a combined 3 IVF egg retrievals and 2 embryo transfers,
We are both pregnant.
so Nick is like holding up his fingers. 2 kids for Ari. Yeah. And you might be wondering when we're due. And we are due in July.
2 days apart.
So you might be wondering at this point if we have completely lost our marbles. But this was very intentionally planned. You also might be wondering if we know the biological sex of both babies.
And we do, but we're not sharing that.
So we want to thank you all for sharing our joy this morning. You have meant the world to us, even though none of you have known it, as we have gone through this really long journey before COVID even started, with many delays, rough bumps, and rough patches. We really, really appreciate it.
So we want to thank you for the support that you have given without even knowing it. And we look forward to your continued support as we traverse this new stage of our journey.
I'm so excited. Beautiful congregation, please join me a moment of meditation or prayer or contemplation, as is right for you. Spirit of love, always surrounding us, always present, but sometimes we forget to listen. We forget just to reach out. And so we remind one another now, we are here. We will do our best to listen. We will do our best to love. We will do our best to build this home. Yes, the place, this amazing space here and tomorrow there too. But the most important things we build are in our hearts. The places we make for one another, so that when we bring joys, a whole congregation can cheer. And when we bring sorrows, a whole congregation can reach out. And when we bring questions, There are those who will help us find our answers, but not tell us what they have to be. And so it matters, beloved congregation, that you are here. Keep listening, keep loving, keep transforming. So be it. Amen. Blessed be. I'm going to invite your board president now to share a report with you.
Thank you, Joel. Good morning, everyone. Wow, good morning, good morning. I am Paul Fern, president of the board, and I was going to share, and I am going to share three things to you, and I want to fully acknowledge that you will not hear a word I say, because I cannot just wait to go out and hug Candace and Brooke at coffee hour. I'm sure you're all thinking the same thing. So if it doesn't really stick, ask me over coffee what I said, but here are the things I'd like to share with you today. Congratulations, what exciting news. And one of them coincidentally ends with a discussion of our growing RE program. So how's that for appropriate today? So first of all, really on this last weekend of January 2024, just happy New Year's greetings from the entire board. Really, it's wonderful to get off. It feels like so much can happen in the month of January already. So happy New Year's to you all. I am so grateful to the staff and the board and so many of our volunteers for helping us. And last fall I reported again today on our 4 board priorities of the Ministerial Search Committee and the search, our new addition, our policy governance journey, and our communication flow work that we're doing. Truly, with your support and feedback, we feel good about the progress we're making, and we are really committing to continuing this work in the year ahead. So thanks for joining with us in that. Today, so one of the first big things I want to say is I'm announcing formally our special congregational meeting on April 28th, 2024, Sunday, here in this room. On this day and in this sanctuary and online, we will have a vote of affirmation for our new to be settled minister. So mark your calendars for sure. This will be a culmination of 18 months of the searching process of building our team, discussing the process, our meetings, our covenant groups and meetings. So it's been an amazing time. Now the candidating week is really an 8-day process. It starts on April 21st on a Sunday with a service. It goes through the week where the applicant who has gone through the pre-candidating process and been screened, of course, is found to be the best candidate for our beloved congregation. And they spend that whole week with us in dialogue with our members, with our staff, with our board, with our committees, with all of you, and then leading us in those 2 services. So it's such an important week and an exciting week, and what a milestone ahead. So please mark your calendars April 21st, and especially, of course, for the vote of affirmation on April 28th. So, and thanks again to the search committee. You're doing an amazing job. Number 2, I can't let a week go by without looking out the windows and thanking the Gateways team. Do you know, this week the electrical and the plumbing was all inspected and it's ready to go. So I hope in about a week the remaining slab will be poured, and you'll soon, shortly after, start seeing walls go up around the kitchen and the bathrooms and the classrooms, and so it's really exciting out there. So thank you to Gateways. I'm seeing Sandra and Helene and Steve. They're working like crazy, and the rest of the team. Katie, the Visbean contractors, for all their hard work. And I'm seeing Franklin and Shari too, who in connection to all this will for sure be calling you, and thank you for supporting them and taking their calls and supporting this amazing project as it comes along. It's so exciting. So again, I've mentioned these 4 goals, and we support our staff. These are the goals from the board perspective, I want to say, and I want to highlight that our valued staff, they have a set of goals that they work on very hard throughout the year, and these include taking our congregational input and our vision and mission, as Joel discussed this morning, and building their main goals this year around building consistency and inspiration on our Sunday mornings, building a strong RE program, and creating a welcoming space for all of our intergenerational services every Sunday here at 10:30, which is just amazing. So we support our staff in these goals as trustees, of course, but honestly, all of the real support comes from all y'all. I guess you can see I've been visiting Texas a bit recently. Their support comes from our volunteers in welcoming, worship, ushering, choir, AV, and RE, of course. This past fall, Reverend Joel, Nick, Michael, Alex, and Katie, thank you so much. You've worked hard to create plans for this single intergenerational service every week at 10:30, with RE starting at 9 o'clock and actually going through this time with youth group. And so for the religious education elements, Nick Walwork, our Director of Religious Education, is Nick still in the room? He was there just a minute ago. Work closely with volunteers to form an RE committee and to put flexible programming in place to work in this hour. I was inspired this week as I saw these many colorful postcards. In fact, I grabbed some here that are out on the welcoming table. They're set there to catch the eye of our new families and our visiting families, and announce the classes that are really coming online this month in January, with classes covering sources and history of Unitarian Universalism, social justice, spiritual practices. The classes called OWL are launching right now. OWL, Our Whole Lives, teach healthy and important lessons on sexuality and are being taught at 3 different age groups. So this is really a comprehensive OWL program, our biggest since 2019, since before the pandemic. So be sure, by the way, if you haven't listened to the NPR article, National Public Radio, you can Google and find an article about OWL and its nationwide impact it's having. It's a brand new article just a few weeks ago. Also, LGBTQ learning and awareness is being built into classes as well. So those are all on the cards that you'll see out on the welcome table. And I enjoyed a Sunday morning class in LGBTQ, rainbow parenting, and I look forward to seeing others in these classes before services this fall or during the week. So thank you, Nick, as our Director of Religious Education, for your hard work and for building this curricula with a focus on flexibility for our families, and for doing this work in close collaboration with RE committees and teachers and families. And I want to especially highlight today the RE committee, Carolyn Blanchard, Phyllis Macias, Jen Archibald, Sarah Parikh, and Carrie Davis, for your committee work. You're doing a lot of hard work every week to bring energy and love to this RE curriculum upstairs and working with our teacher volunteers. So thank you so much. And thank you, RE families and children. Thanks for your playfulness and your presence here, for being such an important part of our congregation. It takes a village, so please reach out to any of them. Reach out to Nick. And I would like to lean into my Muff Theater Productions role of the Ghost of Christmas Present. To you all, and especially my young cast members, enjoy this day and all life brings.
Please stand if you'd like.
Please stand. If you are.
I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river.
as we sang, I've got strength like a mountain, I thought of Brooke and Candace. Come August. When it comes to building community, is Unitarian Universalism, unique or unusual or both? Well, I think unique is an overused word, so I'll go with unusual, since I probably have not yet discovered all the ways different religions build community. Or I could say there is so much about religion that is universal that I would be hard put to say we are unique. I'm a big fan of Joseph Campbell, his Hero with a Thousand Faces, and his Masks of God series, which I read as a religion mythology major, those many years ago in college. So I'm careful with the word unique. Nonetheless, my observations over the years since 2005, when I started coming to this fellowship regularly, are several. Notably, we are not a creedal religion, but covenantal. On the surface, you might say, well, it would be easier to be in community in a creedal religion where everyone is supposed to follow the same rules. But our covenant actually encourages us to grow together. Here at MUF specifically, quote from our covenant, mindful of the rich diversity and essential oneness of human experience, we covenant to weave the fabric of community from the strands of our separate lives. I just love that line. Built into that covenant is our pledge to create for ourselves and our children a spiritual home that will nurture, challenge, and offer us renewal. To seek what is true, even as we celebrate the mystery of existence. To reach out to all who share our liberal religious values. And to work for social justice and the well-being of our planet Earth. Weave the fabric of community. That is a powerful image. And there are many ways this is played out. Social activities such as dinners with friends, service auction events, cinema circles, and game nights. Or groups such as Green Earth Ministry, Circle of Men, Covenant Circles, and social justice activities. But in a general sense, what I have admired most is the way this fellowship has become a welcoming home to people who have had a hard time finding a spiritual home somewhere else. I was struck over the years by the stories told in lay services by people who talked about why they came to MUF. As a general observation, I have noted that lapsed Catholics want to forget the religion they abandoned, while those of Jewish heritage often continue to offer that heritage. That those who have Buddhist leanings one year and find truth in the I Ching another, or who draw inspiration from all our 6 sources on a regular basis, are accepted as searchers for spiritual truths that work for them. Most notable to me have been the couples who found a home here where their differences could be accepted. The lapsed Catholic and the atheist, the person who came from an evangelical background paired with a lifelong UU. And of course, we are a welcoming community where gender preferences also do not matter. Though we struggle to achieve an ethnic diversity, many of us would love to see that happen. In closing, I want to share that I am the daughter of a Methodist minister. When my family moved to Madison in the 1960s so my dad could return to graduate school at Drew, my dad's interest was in the philosophy of religion. And one of his favorite professors often spoke here when services were in the terrace room. My flute teacher helped build the harpsichord that was used for many years, and a high school boyfriend brought me to a jazz concert here. But I didn't follow any religion except nature for many years. I came back here as a result of hearing Steve Rice speak at a UU in New York State. When he said he was from the Morristown UU, I thought, that's 5 minutes from my house. The first service I attended was a lay-led service with a focus on Walt Whitman. The meeting room was arranged with chairs facing into the center of the main floor. The focus was there, not on the stage. I thought to myself, this is my kind of people. And for the next few Sundays, I often had tears in my eyes as people shared their joys and concerns, their milestones and passages. One that I will never forget was about National Adoption Day and the number of children for whom a local organization had found permanent, loving homes. When I began to participate in lay-led services, my dad said that he and my mother were so happy that I had found a spiritual home. They, of course, came to those services, and my dad and I even led a few lay services together. For me, that is a wonderful memory of completing a circle of community with my own family in perhaps a unique and unusual way.
We take our offering now. You can see the many ways we have to receive your offering. The basket will go around. We can take cash or checks, and there are ways to contribute online. Human beings like to talk about how bees like flowers. It's more accurate to say that bees need flowers. Flowers have pollen, flowers have nectar, and that's what bees eat. That's where they get their nourishment. Bees need plants with flowers to survive. Somehow across the millions of years of evolution on this earth, bees and plants evolved together to need one another, because the plants also need the bees in order to reproduce and have seeds. Plants need bees, bees need plants. And when a bee goes from flower to flower, she gets pollen all over her. And she mixes the pollen up from many different plants. And plants need this mixed up pollen because that's how they get some diversity in their genetics to make healthy seeds. The seeds that will become new plants that adapt well in the environment where they live. Bees take the flower pollen and they feed it to the bee larvae in their hive. Or, to put it pretty simply, baby bees eat pollen. Now, we human beings need what plants produce. In fact, Donich was telling me just this morning, as he was explaining his 20 years of being a beekeeper, that the way that the plants we eat are so interconnected with bees that if there were no bees, we would lose over 30% of the food available to us. Countless billions of people would starve to death. Humans depend on plants, plants depend on bees, and so we too indirectly depend on bees. But I have found over the years, thus this stole with the bees on it, or if I'm feeling really bee-like, my black and white stripes, they knew there was something special about bees. Bees were long thought to be prophetic. They were messengers from another realm. In fact, the name of Deborah, the prophetess and judge of the Old Testament, translates as bee. Or the priestesses who tended the oracle at Delphi in the ancient pagan empires. Those priestesses were known as Melissae. So a Melissa means bee as well. There's been a lot of debate in the last 20 years about how bees are doing. About 20 years ago, I remember reading about colony collapse disorder. A lot of the hives weren't surviving through the winter anymore. But as it turns out, as the scientists took a look at why bees weren't doing well, it had less to do with how the bees were doing and more how we were doing with the bees. Most beehives these days are kept on an industrial scale. They're used to pollinate the crops. So Don was describing how in California, semi-trucks will come in with thousands of hives, and they'll spread them all over the Central Valley of California on enormous industrial farms so that the plants get pollinated so we can have strawberries and blueberries and raspberries and so much of our food. At the end of the growing season, industrial farmers will extract all of the honey from about half of the hives they have. And in general, as I've read, they will either leave those hives to eat kind of a sugar water for the rest of the winter, which I can't imagine is very fun for the bees. Sugar water, honey, honey. I'll take the honey, thank you. But many times, they will just let the bees and the hives starve to death. So what many bee scientists are now saying is that there's a crisis in how bees are doing, yes, but it's not so much because of what the bees are doing, it's because of how humans treat them. Bees in the wild seem to be doing more or less okay. In the spring, when a wild honeybee colony has slept through the winter, and they had plenty of nectar and honey stored up and nobody had taken it, a new queen will be born to serve the hive. Then about half of the colony and the old queen will leave to become a new hive and find a new place to live. When they leave the old hive, a swarm of thousands of bees will leave the hive, fly outside, and find a place to wait. It's called swarming. And this swarming new hive that's just been born waits because the first thing they need to do as a newly born bee colony is look for a new place to build a nest. I'm going to have Alex put a picture up for me. I don't know if you've ever seen a swarm of bees. This is what they look like, not when they're actually in the flight aspect of a swarming, but they create something that beekeepers call a beard. Apparently this looked like somebody's beard way back. Must not have taken very good care of that beard, but in the center of that swarm is the queen, and there are many different layers of bees. And they'll be very quiet and minding their own business. You won't, if you see one, you probably won't get stung unless you go up and start poking at it. This is what's so interesting to me about what happens at this point as the bees have landed in this newly born hive. It's this very vulnerable moment. They have only the pollen and the honey that they can carry in their stomachs. So they have to find a home pretty quickly. They can't really just stay there. They have to locate flowers with nectar and pollen. And the queen, even though the queen's in the center, the queen is vulnerable. And if they lose the queen, they can't survive. Sometimes the queen is lost, or the swarm can't come to an agreement about what to do next, and they have to return to the old hive. The old queen is most likely going to be killed, and they might get a second new young queen instead of the old queen. So when the swarming bees have left and their new hive is born, they have a special group of bees that was being developed right before they left and began swarming, and they're called scouts. There are usually about 60 bees that become scout bees. And the scouts start searching for a new place for where they can build their hive. And so the bees will go out. And there was a fellow named Linnaeus who about 20 years ago was looking at one of these swarms and noticed that those scout bees, he noticed there were bees that were something different about them. Some of the bees had like brick dust on them because they'd been crawling around in chimneys. Some of the bees had wood shavings on them because they'd been crawling around in parts of houses. Some of the bees were covered in the dust of what you might find in a hollow space in a tree. And he was trying to make sense of, well, how did that happen? Well, the scouts have been looking for the specific kind of place that's perfect for a hive. It has to face the right direction. It has to have an opening that's not so big that animals, especially like bears, can get in there and start swiping honey. And it's got to be near lots of flowers, water sources. When scouts find a place that they think is the right size, is a dry place, and has the right doorway facing the south, the scout bees will spray a pheromone in that new place. They mark it with their scent, and then they go back to the swarm to report on what they've seen. And this is the interesting part, because this is where honeybee democracy shows up. The scout bees have their own way of talking about the different places they've seen. And they report on the place. And they do something called a waggle dance. So I'm going to ask Alex to... there it is. See the one that right there? Moving around, and then he wags his butt. Now, I'm not suggesting we get into a congregational meeting and start, going like that, but actually the bees are communicating both the direction, the wind speed, where the sun was, and how long it is to the location of the place they think would be a great place for the hive. Now, there are about 60 bees doing this, so all the bees are listening very carefully or paying attention to the waggle dance, as it's called, of the scout bees. Now, what's interesting about this is that the scout bees never insist that they found the place to go. The bees decide together as a colony what they're going to do. In fact, I want to note that when the scouts are out and when they come back and they're communicating with the entire hive, the queen is not even part of the conversation. The queen plays a completely different role. In fact, the name queen probably is not a great name for that central figure in a beehive or a bee colony. To put it simply, the colony is the boss of itself. Thank you very much. In fact, though, some beekeepers and some bee scientists are beginning to think that bees are not even so much maybe a democracy, but bees are like one being, perhaps one giant consciousness itself, thinking together as one being. So what I think we Unitarian Universalists might learn from bees, first, if we're going to learn from them, is that they are quite intelligent. In 2018, researchers showed that bees understand the concept of zero, something we human beings did not understand until the year 1200. A scientific book published last year argues that the reason bees can perform so many different kinds of tasks, nursing their young, the baby bees as larvae, guarding their hives, figuring out where to collect nectar and pollen from flowers, building nests, figuring out when they need a new queen, when to swarm and birth new colonies. This is all very complex stuff. One scientist writes, bees qualify as conscious agents. They are as conscious as a dog or a cat, at least. So if a UU congregation is like a beehive, the whole group of bees makes big decisions, especially like picking the location where they will build their new hive. They all start doing the waggle dance, the specific kind of waggle dance of the scout bees that they're hearing about. In a sense, they vote with their butts. When most of the scout bees communicate, as they communicate, they'll go back and check each other's favorites. If one bee is scout bee is really enthusiastic, the other scout bees will go back and they'll check the location out. And eventually the scout bees start coming up with a consensus. And once they have a consensus, then another set of bees comes into play. And these bees are called buzz runners. And the buzz runners take the message from the scouts and the consensus that they found, and they start telling the other bees about the consensus of the scout bees. And does the colony agree? And once enough of the hive is in agreement with the scouts, then there's another group of bees that has been listening to the conversation in the hive, and I'm going to call them piper bees. And the piper bees literally make a piping sound, or it's almost like it sounds like what a bee would sound like if it was playing a little bee-sized trumpet. And you can hear it online, actually, if you go online and look up bees and piping. And the piping, it's almost like a song. And it's the "It's time to go" song. Everybody get ready to fly. We've chosen a new home. So, if a UU congregation is like a beehive, I want to emphasize, I don't think the minister's like the queen bee. I think the minister is actually more like a buzz runner, along with the board. Our job is to pay attention to what a congregation is thinking and help it make the decisions it wants to make. And I think the piper bees are something, I think that's a role that your board does. They see enough information, they're paying attention, and then they know when it's time to say, let's get going, let's do a thing. Let's build an addition. What do you think, congregation? And when a congregation has to make a decision, there are many allegories to the scouts, the bee scouts. Our committees are like scouts. They do hard, specialized ministries that take extra skills, extra work. They check in with the congregation, but you really don't want the whole congregation spending all of its time deciding, say, details on the addition. How thick should the slab be? We need to move one pipe. Where should it go? That'd make the most boring congregational meeting. And you have some really great folks on your Gateways team who are thinking about that. Interim ministers are so your search committee is like the scouting bees, except that interim ministers are never buzz runners for that process. We stay out of that. That has to be your voice that speaks, never the interim minister's voice. And as Paul mentioned on April 28th, you will make a final decision. Let's do a thing. Let's call someone. Sometimes, not too often, the swarm of bees cannot agree on a new home. Things become very dangerous for the hive then. If they don't find a way to think as a one hive, the likelihood is they will die. Mostly they can't go back to the old hive, though sometimes some of them do and might be integrated. But you can't have two queens in a hive. The old queen can't go back. If the swarm splits and tries to make two hives, they will not be strong enough to survive the next winter. So what is the role of the queen? Or the analogy of the queen? And this gets me back to what I was thinking about in Rochester. In a congregation, that sort of central figure, maybe it's just the symbol of the chalice, but I think it's something more than that. I think it's your understanding of why you're here and how you're going to be with one another. That center that brings new life, new understanding, and transforms the world. My personal view is your mission, the one you are always creating together and never finished creating together, that is your queen, that central light of how you are as community. When all the bees are ready, they begin to fly, singing the "Let's Go" song. And the bees on the outside of the swarm start flying, and then the next layer flies, and then the next. And when the queen starts flying, they make their way to their new home. I'm going to be interested in seeing what the waggle dance looks like here in the next couple of weeks and months. Exciting times for the congregation. Let's sing together as we conclude our worship this morning. Rising Green. What's that again?
Yes, please stand if you have. I think it'll be new to most of you. It's a wonderful tune, and I love finding all the different folk tunes and arrangements that are, especially in the Teal book. And it does fit beautifully with the bees and nature and how all the community that we're trying to build in harmony with each other.
Where the stars
if you're comfortable, take a hand next to you, if you would like. The interconnections between us, sometimes so hard to see. But know there is so much love and possibility in the hand that you hold, whether it's a beloved family member or someone you have yet to meet. Take the joy and the possibilities in those hands you hold, share it, and go out into a world that needs that love and needs that democracy. Go in peace, be in peace. We'll be together again.